KCAA.
Live and in color from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California, and in parallel from the Turf's Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone show this evening.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are in this wonderful world. Thanks for taking time out and calling in and tuning in to the Water Zone show. I'm your host, Rob Starr, along with our special, I call her special because she's been indoctrinated really well and fits perfectly, Miss Tara Mullally. She is a wonderful co-host. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
I thought you were shocked as you were just holding your breath.
I know. I just was like, what? I've come in so well. That's so exciting for me. I'm really excited about kind of what we're talking about today.
Me too, and we have our wonderful Miss Chris Austin, who is the purveyor of Maven's Notebook, where we get a lot of our morning news about water. Miss Chris, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. How are y'all doing?
I was doing well. Sarah, you doing well?
I am doing well. I'm really curious about what's going on with the Colorado River, though. Is that doing well?
Let's ask the wizard, the predictor of all.
Oh my, the Colorado River. This is getting
you want dramatic music? You want dramatic music in the background?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Go ahead.
Things are really getting down to the wire on the Colorado River. They have only till August of 2026 to have finalized rules for operating the reservoirs and the Colorado River and who's going to get how much water. And that's when the current rules run out. But even as these current rules are running out, the levels in Lake Mead and Lake Powell are just dropping. And as the drought on the Colorado River rolls on. And so we have the feds have they have drawn so many deadlines on this issue, and they've drawn another one, which is Tuesday on Veterans Day. They want the basin states to have come up with a plan, or if they don't come up with the plan, the feds are going to come up with their own plan. And nobody knows what that's going to be. You know, things are so tight on the Colorado River that there's nothing, there is no easy solution to this. There is no easy decision to be made. There's nothing like environmental water being, quote unquote, wasted to the ocean. There isn't anything like that really at play in the Colorado Basin. They are not as focused on fish as, say, we are in the Delta. And they have to come up with these operating rules because as these reservoirs drop, they're simply not sustainable. And what this means is, they're trying to figure out how to cut a very large amount of water from the river. And the basin states are divided up into the upper Colorado River Basin and the lower Colorado River Basin. And back in 1922, when they signed the Colorado River Compact, they gave 7.5 million acre feet to each basin. And I found out as I was covering one of the metropolitan meetings is they did this because the Supreme Court right before that, had ruled on this doctrine of equitable access, where you would divide up the river. On all the states have get a share of the river, but they were very concerned because already the Imperial Irrigation District, the Imperial Valley, actually it wasn't Imperial Irrigation District in the beginning, but the Imperial Valley had already sopped up 3.1 million acre feet of water, which is like equal to a fifth of the flow of the river. Excuse me, I have a bit of a cold. So that's why they put it into definite amounts. And then after that, they're like, oh, whoops, we forgot about Mexico. So later on, a big chunk, I think 1,500 acre feet goes to Mexico. Mexico. So you have these definitive numbers, and things are based on these definitive numbers, and the reservoirs are just kind of languishing right now, and they're not going to be able to support the current rules, so they have to negotiate these new rules.
Doesn't the water from, I know it goes to Mexico, some of it, but what about all the water, the contaminated water that Mexico is dumping back into us?
They've really done, well, I mean, if you're talking about the Tijuana River,
yeah.
That river is running from Tijuana down into the ocean and comes out around San Diego. And that is not connected to the Colorado River Basin. And there isn't really water allocation involved with the Tijuana River. That is kind of a separate issue. But I have to say, this is one area where the Trump administration has really gone in there and tried to do things. So they're working with Mexico on this, and they're working to actually solve the problem and might have the problem solved within a year, which involves upgrading the water treatment plant. So there's been some good news on the Tijuana River. I'm sorry, my cold.
No, sorry, you have a cold.
But, I mean, the big issue comes in, how are you going to make up for these deficits? And the lower basin states have been talking, and but they want the upper basin states to take some sort of cut, at least in, some sort of significant cut for climate change purposes. And the upper basin is saying, well, we have never fully used our allocation, so we don't think we should have to cut back. So it's very interesting because you wouldn't think that, I mean, like when we talk about politics sometimes, especially in California, water politics, people sometimes assume that Southern California is the big gorilla on the landscape, sucking up all the water for swimming pools, and they shake their fist at Southern California. Some people do. But on the Colorado River, Southern California is not the bad guys. They're actually the most collaborative people out there. And that's because Southern California Metropolitan Water District's share of the Colorado River is junior to Imperial Irrigation District, junior to all the other Colorado River users in the state. So they have to be the good guys, and they have to work with people, and they show up, and the one thing that they have going for them is when they show up to look for water solutions, they show up with money. They show up with funding for things. And so they've actually been very collaborative working with Arizona. Arizona is the one in the lower basin that's really that has probably the most to lose in this, because their water rights are actually junior to Metropolitan's water rights. So theoretically, Metropolitan is ahead of them in the water line, but Metropolitan is working with Arizona and is trying to find some solution. But there is no question that the solution to this problem is going to involve a large cut of water to all the states that rely on the Colorado River. Substantial cuts are coming.
Which means a lawsuit's coming.
Yes. Yeah. And Arizona is in a particularly sticky situation because they have most of the tribes that are on the Colorado River, and a third of the Central Arizona project goes to satisfy tribal water rights, which are federal reserve rights. So, and that's a third. So, there's a lot at stake here, and there is no easy answer, and it's very unclear who's going to make the decision, although it's been clear to me for quite some time that the feds are going to have to make the decision. Unfortunately, that will result in litigation, but I don't think that they've been able to resolve this. Well, they obviously haven't resolved it with talking now for years. This has been years in the making, and I just think it's too hard for these people to take any cut. It's just too hard.
Well, somebody's going to have to do something, and you're right. It's going to be hard when everybody's vying for their share of the water, and how everybody's going to try to be equal in that. And each one's going to want the most they can get out of it. And then if they don't, then the government's going to take over and divide it up, which I think might be even worse to different states. That's my opinion.
Well, what I find humorous, I guess in an ironic sort of way, is I can remember when we were really fighting over the Delta and water management in the Delta, and on a number of occasions, Jeff Keitlinger, who was general manager of Metropolitan at the time, would say, we can't ever get anything resolved in the Delta, but on the Colorado River, we have 7 states and Mexico, and look what we can do, because at the time, they were negotiating and figuring out how to use less, but there was lots of money around and enough water that the money, kind of made up for the lack of water. That farmers were getting paid to not farm and things were moving. But now it's just not that way. And I think it's easy to collaborate when it's not that bad, but when it really gets dire and these cuts are going to hurt, no doubt. Wherever they land, everyone will be hurt. There's no way around that. So we'll see how it works.
Do you think with the new launch of that Cal Waters program, which measures the transparency and efficiency of the water rights, you think that's going to help the state and then enforce anything to these users?
Well, that system is kind of a different thing, so it's not really related to the Colorado River, but it is related to water rights in the way they are in here in the state.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah, because it's interesting. We're very technologically advanced here in California, but some of our municipal computer systems are just way lacking, and the state water board's management of water rights, what was available online, was not very well set up, and they still were using primarily paper documents for probably up until recent years. So what this is a very large project, and they stood it up in 2 years, which is actually amazing for such a full
Unknown
IT
participant
system.
is now joining.
But so now all the water rights are going to be online and on a GIS-based system, and a lot more capabilities for water right holders that have to file reports, and water users, the public. If you're buying a piece of land and you want to see if it has water rights attached to it, you'll be able to go and find that plot of land and click on it and find out. And used to have to pay someone to do some of these things, and now you'll be able to do them just by going onto this website. So standing it up in 2 years is a pretty amazing accomplishment.
Yep. Do you think, I'm not trying to get off the main topic, but do you think they're going to go after, or have you seen much action in them going after other people that don't have the water rights that are illegally pumping out water?
I don't think at this point in time that there's a focus on that. I think they know there are areas where people are doing that, but as far as I know, they're not headed at that right now. Eventually, I think they have now stricter fines for that, but I don't know. I don't cover the enforcement, or the enforcement branch at the State Water Board doesn't always report out at meetings. So,
well, I'm talking, going back to the main issue that you're talking about as far as the Colorado River and Arizona. I've talked to Andy Biggs, and I know the gentleman who's running for governor will be running, named Schweikert, and we talked in depth. Probably about 30 minutes. I met with them 2 weeks ago, and it's going to be really interesting in their comments what they think Arizona's deserved out of this whole thing, and they're going to be fighting hard. Not because I live here, but I mean I'm interested in knowing about that every day, what they plan to do and say, and how they're going to react back to the government of what they think their fair share of the water rights should be, and I got to assume the other states will do the same.
Yeah, it's gonna be real interesting to see what happens. But I mean, it's a lot. There's not a lot of water. The cut's gonna be pretty substantial. So.
Well, I told Tara I was up in California this past weekend on some business, and when I crossed the border from Arizona to California, I saw people standing in the Colorado River there. And you can see their ankles, so it's like to the bottom. I'm not making fun of it, but it was pretty sad. I mean, you can't launch a boat or anything in that thing. It's you're just stuck in the mud.
Yeah.
Well, what's super interesting is that California has kind of more senior rights than some of the other states that it kind of comes to, which is fascinating. So, how they're going to negotiate that and what they've done in the past in order to secure those rights, and now we're talking about shifting that. It's all just very interesting to see how it unfolds.
Well, the Imperial Valley gave up some water way back when they did the Quantification Settlement Agreement, or QSA, way back, I think, 2003 or so, and they swore never again.
Yeah.
That they were not good, and they do not like the thought of giving up any more water. However, and they have the most senior water rights on the river. I mean, again, it's a fifth of the flow of the river. That's 1/5, so that's more than any state, and that is just going into the Imperial Valley. Now, the Imperial Valley grows all those great salad vegetables in the wintertime because the weather down there is so mild. And they do it's a big important agricultural area, and they are producing a lot of food for the nation. That's not to be just shrugged off. But again,
also where the Salton Sea is, and there's water needs there. Like, all of that is really complicated, and it needs the water. Like, that area really needs water, but at the same time, you can't just ignore thousands and thousands and thousands of people because it's not convenient to what you need.
Yeah. So it's, and if we fall into straight legal interpretation, well, then everybody would be letting the water flow down to the Imperial Valley. I mean, states and everyone. So, I mean, that could be, I don't think that's really a doable thing, to let all these other states go dry. So it'll be fascinating to see what happens. Theoretically, the deadline is November 11th. We'll see if it happens or if they move it again. But at some point, they're going to have to make a decision, and we're going to have to go with it. So
I'll make a prediction they extend that date.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's really Christmas time.
Let's just talk about it in the new year.
Yeah. We'll kick it down the road. So what else do you see that's unnerving here in California?
So one thing that I'm really interested in is that Turlock Irrigation District, Tuolumne River stuff, because the fact that the State Water Resources, like, they just tore apart that scientific study. And that's always super interesting, and like in what ways and how and all of that stuff. I don't know if I've surprised you again, but that one is really intriguing to me.
Yeah, and well, on last Tuesday, the State Water Board held a workshop on that scientific report, and that's for a voluntary agreement for the Tuolumne River. The environmentalists are not happy with the Healthy Rivers and Landscape program, the plan for the Sac River, and well, they don't like this one much better. But they had the big workshop. Now, I haven't dug into the workshop. For those that are my donors and sponsors, I'm going to be doing. I'll be covering it a little bit in my weekly newsletter, so there you get a little tease, so make a donation and you get some extra. Yes, it was a long day, so it'll be what I call a needle drop, but I will give interesting coverage from the workshop, so.
You always do.
Yeah, well.
That's what people like. That's what people expect.
That's what people gotta pay.
That's why she's the maven.
Exactly.
Hey, Chris, we appreciate you coming on every single week, and you got a great sense of humor. We love joking with you. I love going to the places where you go speak in public, like we did in a year or two ago up in with the architects, and that was out here actually in Arizona. And you made everybody laugh, and it was great. You did well, so we appreciate it. But for our listeners, you got to go to her blog, mavensnotebook.com, become a subscriber. Chris and I and Tara and everybody gets all that information first thing in the morning. It's there before I even get up in the morning, and I appreciate that. And I think that's when you're just going to bed about that time when I start reading it. And but anyway, it's a great way to get your water news, and you can become a subscriber, as I said, but you could also become a funder of that, and that would be awesome for Chris. So put my little 2 cents into that. And Chris, we thank you very much for coming on the show every single week. We do appreciate it.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. All right, we're going to take a little break and be back with our special guest, and it'll be an interesting topic, more about water and a bill that California passed called AB 1572, and we can talk about that and learn a lot about it and what we all can expect from that. So stick around for the second half. We'll be back in a few moments.
Are you presently part of the irrigation industry as a worker or business owner? Do you want to learn how you and your staff can boost your knowledge and productivity? Then you should check out Irrigator Technical Training School. Irrigator Tech is the leading source of quality instruction serving all facets of the irrigation industry. Their courses provide a basic, easy-to-understand approach that raises the skill level, competency, and professionalism of landscape and irrigation personnel through practical education and services. Irrigator Tech combines classroom and real-life hands-on training, leading to a well-recognized certification that both customers and employers demand. Irrigator Tech's specialized courses can help quickly become a certified irrigation auditor or a certified installer, repair, maintenance, or backflow technician. Courses also include certificates in smart water application or becoming a certified tree worker. Most importantly, all certifications are state recognized, and Irrigator Tech offers annual renewal classes to help keep your certification up to date. So whether you work in California, Washington, Oregon, Nevada, or Arizona, there's an Irrigator Tech class near you. For more information on how to jumpstart your career, call Irrigator Tech toll-free 866-614-1755 or visit them on the web at irrigatortech.com. That's toll-free 866-614-1755 and on the web at irrigatortech.com.
We're on site today using the ProTrade milliamp clamp meter to do one of the key diagnostics for low voltage lighting. Hi, my name's Sean, one of the coaches on the Site 1 training team, and today we're looking at how to diagnose for secondary amperage. In order to do this, we've got to ensure our milliamp clamp meter is in the amp AC position. Our transformer is on and we haven't exceeded our max output or secondary amp load of 25 amps. In order to do this, we take our clamp amp meter and place it around just one of our wire leads. Our reading will be indicated here. If we show up on future diagnostic opportunities and that reading is different, we know we've got a challenge on that wire run. Hope this gets you up and running quicker. For more information on any low voltage item or to pick up your milliamp clamp meter today, come into Site 1 or see site1.com.
All right, welcome back to the second half of the Water Zone. Thanks for staying tuned in. We have a very special guest today. It's not a newcomer to the show. She's been on before. Her name is Tia Fleming, and as the Executive Director of the California Water Efficiency Partnership, she leads the organization's strategic vision and oversees programs, partnerships, and advocacy efforts that support the urban water suppliers across California. She is extremely passionate, I can tell you that, about helping agencies collaborate, innovate, and share practical solutions for efficient and effective water management. Tia has more than 15 years of experience working with environmental and water-focused nonprofits and municipal organizations. Her background includes leadership roles in outreach, policy, facilitation, coalition development, with a strong foundation in communications and engagement. Tia graduated naturally with honors from the University of California, Santa Cruz, where she majored in environmental science. She's also a WaterSense qualified water efficient landscaper certified. So, got a very smart lady. I call her WOW, and that's because she's a woman of water. So, here's Miss Tia Fleming. Hi, Tia.
Hi, Rob. How are you? Happy to be a WOW.
We love you. We love you coming on the show a lot. And I know you've done a lot of work at CalWEP, especially with this new tool kit, I'll call it that, about what is AB 1572. And I thought maybe just for the purposes of newcomers to the show, or just people who are not in that industry, you can tell people a little about what CalWEP is and talk about this bill.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to be here. Great to hear Chris on before. CalWEP, we're the California Water Efficiency Partnership. Started in 1991 as the California Urban Water Conservation Council, and have gone through a rebrand several years ago. But really, we're a membership-based nonprofit organization. So our membership is primarily urban water suppliers. We have about 230-ish of the 400 urban suppliers in California. That's defined as, an agency that has over 3,000 connections or serves more than 3,000 acre feet. So, we also have some businesses and academia, and we're really all about efficiency through collaboration. So how can we come together and solve common problems? What are some collaborative solutions that we can put together? Obviously, water agencies across the state have a lot of diverse issues around conservation and efficiency, but also there's definitely some common threads. And so we try to put together tools, resources, trainings, events, you name it, we probably do it in order to support our membership.
Awesome. So what's the purpose of this AB 1572 for our listeners?
Yeah, so AB 1572 was passed in actually 2023, but we're coming up on some compliance dates, so it's really becoming a bigger deal. It's a law that prohibits the use of potable or drinking water to irrigate non-functional turf. So we call that lawns that really serve no recreational or community purposes so non-functional turf on commercial, industrial, institutional properties, but that also includes common areas managed by HOAs. So, it was a sweeping law, and compliance starts in 2027. And so this upcoming year, we're going to see a big push of water agencies trying to communicate to all of these customers that these new laws are coming into effect.
And what are the enforcement pieces about that? Like, so how do they make sure that the HOA behind the closed gate is actually not watering its lawn?
Yeah, enforcement is the stickiest issue of everything, as always, right?
Right.
Also, not totally spelled out. It is, but not, right? So there's multiple kind of. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say you'll know by the color of the grass.
Yeah, exactly. You'll be able to just look in binoculars as drone.
Yeah.
No. So in the legislation, there's kind of two paths to enforcement. The state can enforce, and water agencies may enforce. So water agencies have to, by 2027, put a regulation or an ordinance or a policy on their books that says customers, these class of customers can no longer water non-functional turf with potable water. The question of how they enforce that is a local decision. Some might choose not to enforce, some might really enforce. It's really going to flex. So this is one of the main reasons we wanted to build this statewide toolkit, and I'll explain that a little bit later. Because customers are like, well, we have properties across two different water districts, and you're telling me enforcement is going to look different across those two? And we're like, well, yeah, kind of, it might. The state can also enforce. I don't know what they're planning necessarily. They do, customers that have more than 5,000 square feet of non-functional turf or of turf on their property are going to have to self-certify to the state board starting in 2030, I believe. And so we'll see, that process, I think, evolve as, the state board has a lot on their plate. So this is way far in the future. And they haven't started any kind of official work around it yet. But what is, I think what the urgency that we're feeling to really get the word out about this is there is just a lot of room for misinformation on what is non-functional turf, what do people have to do, do they have to put in a whole new landscape? Are they required to, who decides? How do we decide? So we're getting all of these questions coming in, and we said, okay, let's come together as a water community and really help clarify, define, and provide resources for all of these different sectors who are starting to hear about this and get stressed.
So what are the resources? What's available to us?
So,
I was just saying, can you define non-functional turf for the people who are listening who may not know what that means?
As opposed to
yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, so non-functional turf, right? We'll give some examples too. Non-functional turf refers to irrigated lawn that's ornamental and not regularly used for recreation or public gatherings. Examples of non-functional turf: lawn in medians, roundabouts, parking lots, decorative strips on the sidewalk, unused patches near signage or building entries, decorative lawns kind of around the edges or, under fences, or even sloped or oddly shaped areas that are, clearly not being used to play soccer on or walk on or picnic on or whatnot. That's all non-functional turf. What is functional, right, is school fields, sports fields, picnic fields, play spaces, other areas where people are regularly gathering, playing, engaging in recreational activities. So that lawn, great. I'm a soccer player, love a turf lawn, right? Non-functional turf, random lawn that you're not playing on.
Yeah. We had Resnet on a couple of weeks ago, people from Resnet, maybe Paulette McGrath, and her boss, Brian Merez, I guess it's pronounced his name, and they were talking about, they're in partnership with you guys, I know that. And they were talking about, let's replace this with this and this and this. So what do people think? I mean, I'm looking here on my chat board of people calling in and just asking questions of us. One of the questions is from a gentleman named Frank in Azusa, California, and he's asking, well, what do you do if you take out the grass and you put artificial turf or you put rocks, things? Doesn't that generate more heat for the climate?
Absolutely. I mean, in my opinion, yes, it actually does. Part of our education campaign, and especially before compliance hits in 2027, is really educating people on what are the alternatives. What does a good water-wise landscape look like? How can you make a plan, find the rebates, build a garden that is going to, increase. Let me take a step back. We've actually seen that turf transformation in general, going from grass to, let's say, a California-friendly garden, it's going to have a ton of benefits beyond just water savings, pollinators, curb appeal, building community, and stormwater retention, soil health. Like the list goes on and on and on. And so right now, what we're really focused on is not only letting people know that they have to stop irrigating at a certain date, but also, hey, right now is really one of the best opportunities to take advantage of rebates. Because, in one way, Metropolitan Water District has a $7 a square foot rebate right now for commercial, industrial, and institutional. Wild. They got a lot of grant funding. They're putting it all out there. I think this is, some of the highest that we've ever seen. Once it's mandated that you cannot have turf anymore, our water agency is going to scale back their rebates because it's required now and that they don't need to incentivize, potentially, right? And so we want to capitalize on this moment of rebates being available, support, partnership, to really let people know what are the alternatives. So that's also part of the resources we developed. nonfunctionalturfca.org is our customer-facing website that we've built. So that's nonfunctionalturfca.org. And if you go to this website, you'll see that we have resources for kind of each sector that's being impacted. We have resources specifically for HOAs, everything from step-by-step guides to identifying non-functional turf on their property to sample template newsletters for them to put in their newsletters and inform their customers. For commercial, we have everything from, again, fact sheets about how it impacts them, some information around case studies of how people have done it, what kind of savings they saw. We have specific resources that speak to developers and how they should be thinking about this. We have specific resources that speak to schools and including kind of toolkits for educating their campus around what's happening and how it's happening. And then, of course, for public agencies and cities, we also have things like memos to planning departments and, information and examples of what we've seen across the state and how they might replicate, already successful turf transformation projects. So on our website, this was kind of one of the first things people said was, we just need somewhere where we can point people where there's consistent information that we're all collaborating on and working on. So that was our first big piece. From there spurred I think, over 30 individual pieces of collateral of all those sector-specific type resources. And then also on the website, we have information about how to care for trees during this, because if people just turn off their irrigation, but there's also trees on the landscape, we don't want that. There is actually an exemption kind of carved out for tree health. So you can continue to irrigate those trees. But again, all of that information we try to compile in one place. Information for landscapers around how they can play a role in this. I think, unfortunately, some of the misinformation we've been hearing has just been coming from kind of miseducated landscapers who don't quite understand exactly and are trying to point their customers, in a helpful way, but it's not necessarily accurate. And so we wanted to put together, okay, here's some resources that can explain for a landscaper who's going out in the community how to talk about this, et cetera. Also on the website, which is pretty cool, cutting edge, and constantly evolving, we have a rebate finder and an enforcement finder. So this is one where you can put your address in. We're doing both self-reporting from the water agencies. If they haven't self-reported to us, it's running an AI on the back end to kind of go through the records of water agencies and pull up if they've passed something, if they have an ordinance on the books, if it's gone to their board, it'll pull up that information so people can actually see what the enforcement looks like in their community, if there is, or what the regulations look like in their community. They can also pull up what rebates are possibly available. It'll also pull up a map with their property on it, and they can actually draw a polygon around the turf to see how much square footage they might have. So really just trying to hand tools over to customers to empower them to make the best decisions that they can.
Well,
that is so cool.
Yeah.
Are you guys working with Quell or any of those kinds of other landscape adjacent or like native groups or any of that stuff, or just is this like all your own resource where we can all use it?
So these are resources for everyone that are out there. CalWEP ourselves, we're a Quell PTO, so we run about 8 Quell trainings a year. We love the program. So on the page, there's also Find a Landscaper, and we point to both the Quell Find a Pro page, and we also point to the WELL DCP Metropolitan Program, which is a little different. Also works with the CLCA, the California Landscape Contractors Association. And so, trying to pull in those partnerships. We have a separate project right now working with the California Native Plant Society, I think in the next 2 years, we'll hopefully be launching a maintenance application on people's phones that can help them actually figure out how to maintain these new California-friendly landscapes. So we're really, I think, CalWEP in general, around 2016, we held a landscape symposia, and we really talked about the need for full market transformation and what that looks like around landscape transformation. This is one piece of it, but training, absolutely, policy, absolutely. That landscaper working with nurseries directly around nursery supply and plant supply and availability. It all really ties into this, and we're just trying to do our best to keep everyone kind of coordinated and marching together to make it as easy as possible for people to save water and keep their landscapes thriving and keep their trees healthy and, keep California beautiful and climate resilient.
Do you know if the state tends to pursue the same policy they had before with the rebates, where they charge a tax? People are taxed on the...
Yeah. So we helped pass the state income, rebate. Sorry, gotta switch my brain over to that policy from 4 years ago. But we helped pass that. It exempts rebates from state income tax. The federal income tax issue is still there. So 990s still have to be issued for rebates that are over $600. CalWEP, actually, we process some rebates in-house for our members. And so we know how onerous this is, because at the end of the year, we are trying to track down people's information to make sure that we can send them their 990s if they haven't already filled them out. And so, the Alliance for Water Efficiency, which is our national partner, has been doing a ton of work on trying to pass federal legislation to make, these same rebates tax-free. And I think recently they were able to bring on, you know, historically it's been kind of California sponsored, but recently they brought on co-sponsors from Utah. So working across the aisle to try to find some bipartisan support for this, because it makes total sense. Energy rebates are tax-free. Water rebates should absolutely be as well.
I know you reading some of the stuff you have online. It talks about conducting an irrigation audit should be like one of the first steps that people should do with their property, and I think that's an important factor so they can look at the system to identify any areas using potable water, making sure it's all being used efficiently. One of the gripes I have about some of those regulations, maybe you can give me some better insight and turn me around. I know when new homes, for example, are being built, there's new standards that the cities and demand, you know, having the spray heads 18 inches away from the hardscape, and they can go down the list of all this has to be pressure regulated and so forth and so on. But what I always ask this question to people in the water industry: what happens when somebody is in compliance and they do all the right things and things get passed and they build their house and get their irrigation in and it's all correct, and a couple of years down the road they're going to move to a bigger property or go to a smaller property? Nobody comes back and checks the irrigation system for the way it was when it passed all those things. What happens? Is this just a first step, meaning they're going to make people do all these things, but then afterwards, when they live in the house, they're going to sell it later, and nobody cares anymore. They're not going to go back and make sure the system is operating the same way. What happens? What's your feeling about stuff like that?
I mean, I feel it deeply. I moved into a house here in Sacramento where I live, and the person had done a big turf transformation, river-friendly garden, but they installed all subsurface drip irrigation. Mm-hmm. And so I tried, you know, I'm well certified. I came in, I said, okay, great, let me figure out this irrigation, but it was all underground. And I said, okay, well, there's no one left any plans, no one left my zone. How do I figure this out? I had to kind of because I'm very proactive and obviously like live and breathe this, I had to contact my realtor, who contacted the previous people, who then figured out, you know, who installed it, and I was able to bring them in and run me through. So I think maintenance in general, and I would group that in with maintenance in terms of ongoing maintenance, and then when, you know, properties pass hands, that maintenance is so critical, and it's a nut that we're still cracking. It's a nut that we're still trying to figure out exactly, you know, what is the right approach to that. And so, I mean, if listeners or anyone on here has some great ideas, I think we're always looking for new solutions to pilot, champion, et cetera.
Yeah, I know when I was living in California, you know, I made sure when I sold my house there that everything was up to par. I checked for leaks, low head drainage, you know, you name it, so, you know, all of those things. And the same thing with the HERS. My home was HERS rated as well, and I made sure that still was in compliance to that and things. But I don't know. I find a lot of people selling homes, you know, they say, oh, yeah, we had this put in by a professional landscaper and blah, 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 blah. But yet you walk on their property and you see all these defects. You know, you see the spray bodies below grade, not at grade level. You see the low head drainage. You see heads being broken and geysers going off, leaks in the pipes. You know, valves that are stuck open by a little pebble or dirt and won't close and shut off. All of those things happen, and you know, I guess what people are more excited about buying the house, and I know the wife wants to know the kitchen's perfect and the yard looks great. And you know, since I'm in the water, I'm in the industry like we all are on this call. We're all noticeable about all those things. I mean, I go to different places. First thing I do is look on the ground. What brands spray bodies do they have? I want to know. Is it my company or something? Well, we all do that. I mean, it's, you know, just like Tia does. I'm sure you do the same thing, Tara. And you know, we know what it is. But when people go look for houses, I think that's the last thing, unless they're in this business, that they really look. They just want to see nice curb appeal. So they don't know if they're not using a smart controller and they run it for 2 hours a day. You know, just make sure it's green and flowers are blooming and stuff like that. I always worried about that. You know, you have to get in compliant at the beginning, but then what happens later? You know, it's like Sigma and anything else. I don't see a follow-up yet to all that. I don't know if there will be down the road, if that's what people are thinking, but I don't know.
We are going to launch a phase 2 of this project, and what I'm hearing and what you're reminding me of is engagement with the real estate community as well, right? Because we need to make the case that these native gardens and these, you know, river friendly or whatever you want to call it, are good for real estate. And they need to know how to sell it too, because we've also seen, people do a turf transformation, and then when the real estate person comes in to sell the house, they put turf back in because they think that's what's going to sell more. And so really it's a cultural shift, and it's about, I think education is obviously a huge piece of that, but also really, and one thing that Calip has been doing more is engaging with those kind of state level associations, right? How can we start with them and really go to where they are to talk about these issues, educate on them, hear their concerns. They might not even have ever thought of it. They might see a California native garden that isn't maintained and think it's just weeds, where if they brought someone in that could maintain it real fast, it could look beautiful, and that could be a selling point. And so it's about,
absolutely.
I think there's a lot that needs to be done. But again, part of that full market transformation, right? How do we pull in all of these different sectors to help think out what do we want our landscapes in California to look like over the next, decade?
Yeah. Well, when you sell your home or you buy your home, the real estate person, you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, let's just say, for buy a really nice house, and they bring you a nice, expensive bottle of wine or champagne. Great. Why don't they give them a smart irrigation controller, which could be used much more of that. But anyway,
so we could find some companies to give us a sweet deal on that,
Exactly.
Call me tomorrow. We'll work on that. No, but
yeah.
But one question I always like to ask, this is my favorite question of all. So, Tia, you are, like I said, a wow woman, because you're a woman of water and very well respected in the industry. So say Newsom calls you up tomorrow and says, you know what, Tia, I'm just fascinated by you and what you do, and you're just an unbelievable person. We want to make you the czar of water for California. What's the top 3 things that need to change, in your opinion?
Oh, gosh. Well, one thing I love about my role right now is that I am but a mere slice in the greater water challenges that California faces, right? I am focused on efficiency and conservation, and that is my lane that I love to stay in. That said, within my kind of scope that I'm working in right now, it is wild to me how far apart some agencies are on implementing water conservation and efficiency. And so, I think one thing I'm always going to tell the government that we need more of for our water agencies is funding and technical assistance.
And that's why we care about you.
I am like, my number one comment for everything is always, if we're going to ask water agencies to, clean PFAS out of water, if we're going to ask water agencies to have strict conservation regulations, or manage stormwater, or whatever, pick a regulation, we need to be backing that up with technical assistance and funding, because our water agencies do so much critical work supporting life in California, right? Supporting our existence. And I think there's just a huge need around that. My other soapbox I stand on absolutely is better communication with people about the value of water. I think that we have just, I was at the Water Association of Kern County yesterday speaking at their dinner, and I love going into agricultural communities because, you talk to farmers and they know the value of water. It's in their bones, it's in their blood. I grew up in, LA, super urban LA, and while I feel like my parents did a pretty good job while I'm in water right now, I think we still have a lot of work to do on just general day-to-day, Californians understanding the value of water. And so I would love to see the state really take on a robust campaign to help explain that and make people understand and feel really good about paying their water bills every month, right? Knowing that they're supporting this absolutely essential resource. Before we end, Rob, I want to flag one thing.
30 seconds.
Okay. So we are doing a public, open to the public webinar next week on non-functional turf on AB 1572. It's on November 13th from 12 to 1 p.m. And people can find all that information on nonfunctionalturfca.org under resources.
Okay. I'm not trying to rush you, but I have to turn it over to NBC, otherwise they'll cancel us, and I don't want that to happen.
I knew it was coming. That's why I jumped in.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Tia, thank you very much. You are more than welcome anytime you want to come on the show and talk about anything you guys want. You got it. Just call me and you got it done. All right. Thank you very much for joining us on the Water Zone. And for us, Tara and I thank you for tuning in.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
And the most important thing to do, if you like green, you got to have blue. So be careful how you use your water. Good night, everybody. Talk to you next week.
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda.